when I try to remember the first time when I really paid attention to art outside of my crib, I think about the Cosby Show, and they always showcased art on the walls at the Huxtable's house. The bright color ones were by an artist named Barnett Honeywood. Then there was the one that Mrs. Huxtable won at an auction for $11,000, right? This was so important because they wrote the storyline about the painting being done by her uncle Ellis and being sold by her grandmother, who got sick and needed the money for bills. And what's so telling about the story is that in real life, the most the artist Ellis Wilson actually got off the painting was $300. So knowledge, I want to start with you. What did it mean for you in your career to be featured by Kenya Barris in his TV show Black AF? Because that's a Cosby Show moment for somebody coming up. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. It's funny you say that. Well, first of all, shout out to Kenya Barris and his genius, for even giving me the opportunity and providing a platform for,
Yeah.
myself and other artists who I was, on that platform representing as well, because I feel as though a win for any artist is a win for all artists, right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
speaking about that being somebody's Cosby Show moment. Just this evening, I was sent an image, a photo through Instagram DM of a baby that was born today. No, the baby was born actually on the 23rd, who was named after me after having the parents having watched that show. And they was looking for a name, to name the child. And, and when they watched
Damn.
the show, my name, Kenya mentioned my name. This is the knowledge Bennett piece that I was looking for and what have you. And the mother said to the husband, that's the name. That's what we're going to name our child, So she reached out to me maybe a couple of months ago, just telling me this, right? Warning me, and I was, of course, taken back, right? Extremely humbled by that, such a gesture. And I had a long conversation back and forth with the mother, and with the father indirectly through the mother, and just explaining, one, how humbled I am, what I'm saying, how much of a privilege that is to have someone who you don't know, who you're not connected to physically, like biologically, what have you, somebody that's akin to you, having the opportunity to have that type of impact on somebody, it just, it blew my mind. Because even, my son is my namesake as well, but to have somebody else name their son after me, that was a big thing. So that definitely was one of those, as you just mentioned, Cosby Show moments, because
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me, having, let's say, being formally introduced to art through television, for me, it happened with that Cosby Show episode, learning who that
Mm-hmm.
artist was, understanding the way in which, the television characters, Claire and Heathcliff, how they really wanted that piece. And they went to the auction and really was savvy about the way in which they acquired that work, and they like refused to walk out of there losing, having lost, lost.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably the first time that many young Black Americans, witnessed something like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this full circle moment come back and realize that, Kenya giving me that opportunity and me going on there, doing what I did had a similar impact, onto this generation. So now to be a young man growing up with my name, would always have that connection and that story. So
That's heavy.
my
That's
mind.
heavy.
Yeah.
George, give me a art and pop culture moment that impacted you. Uh, I'm not expecting you to say exactly what Knowledge said, because that's like him pressing the stunt button. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
But
I think it would be hard to compete with that story, but honestly, my road to art was kind of by happenstance. I run a consulting firm that mostly specializes in tech startups, and I was working with a family that is behind Lehman Maupin, one of the top international art galleries, and so they needed an interim CFO for a couple of years to help them kind of fix the financial infrastructure for the company. And it was through that experience that I really started getting involved and sort of loving art. The first piece that really spoke to me personally was the work by Mickalene Thomas, who at that time was represented by the gallery. And then I started slowly getting into more and more of their program and more of their art. And then I found myself, I bought my first Nari Award painting. And then I started living with that. And then it snowballed because it really changed my outlook on life. And of course, I had the Cosby experience and watched Black AF and stuff like that. But as someone who studied, finance and accounting at Morehouse, it was pretty vocational. It kind of was by happenstance, but I will say that it definitely has changed my life in almost every way. Like even how I see the sunrise or the sunset.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's crazy. I almost wanted to punch one of the homies because I thought he was being a smart ass, because I was like, yo, give me some. He's a video director. And I was like, you're like, talk to me about your inspiration. And he was like, everything is inspiration. Life is inspiration. You know what I mean? And so like, even when you just said the sunrise, it's exactly that. There's an iconic piece that we associate with the TV show Good Times, Sugar Shack by Ernie Barnes. And the original was purchased by Eddie Murphy and is said to be on display at his home. George, you can jump back in, or Grant, and thinking about the artists and your roles as investors or collectors, what's the best strategy for artists to get their work sold, and how do they increase the value of their work?
Go ahead, George. I'm sorry.
No, you please. You're great.
Jump in.
Yeah, stay in it, George. Stay in it. Then we'll go.
Okay. I guess I'll go first. Honestly, I think just being consistently putting out good and strong work is probably the most important. In my opinion, the second most important is talking about your practice in a very specific way that resonates with all the members of the art ecosystem, because it's not really the artist who, if you're buying a more established artist, it's not really the artist who's selling their work directly, it's the galleries. And the galleries are almost like the agents or the evangelists for artists, telling their stories to all the other members of the art ecosystem, whether that's museum curators, press, social media. I think it's been an kind of a equalizer of sorts, because you can kind of, skip or circumvent the traditional gallery system to at least become known. But I think just consistency in work and telling your story, and then if you can, find the best gallery that you can join. And I don't mean the best from a standpoint of like the most prestigious, but one that motivates you and you connect with the owners and you're motivated to produce your greatest work. And then at that point, you kind of wait to be discovered. I also think the other thing that's worth pointing out is I wouldn't try to like sell, bargain basement sell your work, because if you end up selling a lot of your work to people who can't afford to hold the work, then it could end up, once you start to have that momentum and stardom, it can kind of backfire, because then everyone's going to be selling work at auction and you could kind of fizzle out. The patience and consistency and for lack of a better word, branding. Yeah.
Graham, what you got?
Yeah. No, I mean, I thought George said it great there. I think, obviously trying and working to become a part of the art community, as George illustrated. I do think artists, and I don't, obviously Knowledge and Hank, I mean, they could probably speak to this better than I can, but I think artists want to make money. But I also feel that creativity is not necessarily inspired by commercialism. And I don't think the idea of, I don't think artists necessarily, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't feel like artists necessarily want to prostitute themselves for commercialism. Right. I do think that people are ultimately drawn to creativity. And so if you can master your creativity, if you can, I'm married to an artist, a different medium, but she is very particular about her creativity. And and she has her career, and that's totally separate and independent of this discussion. But I get to sort of see that the seriousness that she applies, much like I'm sure you as well, everybody here, with maybe the exception, no offense, George, you and I, although I might be the least creative of the bunch, but I think people are drawn to that. And so, I think if you focus on the creativity and then immerse yourself within the art community as best you can, I think ultimately the creativity, will prevail. And so I'm just a big believer in that. And
I love that.
Yeah.